Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We have a pretty robust crowd. For those of you that I haven't bumped into, my name is Harry Brailsford at SMB Nation, and this is the weekly webinar coming to you live from Seattle, Washington over the lunch hour. We have our friends over on the East Coast who are joining us today, Storage Guardian. I'll talk about them in a moment, so it'd be their mid-afternoon. It's evening over in Europe. And it's morning in Australia, so we're covering the world. A little bit of housekeeping as usual, folks. So first of all, be sure if you're in the USA, and I'll check with my Canadian friends, but at least in the USA, we have a time zone change coming up this Sunday morning at 2 a.m. So it's that time of year. And the only reason I say that is want to get you to church on time, but also make sure you're on time for our next weekly webinar. They're always at noon Pacific on a Thursday. We will be announcing in the next 24 hours, I want to give you a heads up that we'll be announcing in the next 24 hours a Executive Pocket MBA one day. It's on Saturdays, and that starts in about 6 weeks. So that's a Q2 concept. They'll go into Q3 and Q4, and the topic is marketing as a service with a primary emphasis on analytics. So it's for MSPs. Stay tuned. You're going to see some messaging in the next 24 hours on that. I can be seen a couple conferences coming up. I'll be at the Ingram Cloud Summit 2017 in mid-April. I'll be at Lenovo Accelerate down in Orlando in late April. We have WPC now called Inspire in Washington, D.C. in mid-July, followed by ChannelCon from CompTIA. I believe it's in Austin this year, early August in Austin. Fun town. Let's jump right into it. So let me give you a little context. Storage Guardian is a long time friend of the family who we bumped into recently, and we said, let's do good stuff again. So that's how we ended up here. And they have new stories to tell. So not surprisingly, with virtually every industry in transformation, I would expect they have a new message, they have new communication, just as we do. So with that said, we have David. David, I mean, dude, I kind of feel like if I haven't known you 10 years, it's I've known you several years, man. This is fun. It's good to get together. How you doing?
Good, and yourself?
Good. Sitting in the rain. And I think we have Omri in the background, but Dave, I think you're the primary presenter. We're talking ransomware, paper trails, and ConnectWISE today.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to spend some time talking to the MSPs out there about what it takes involved when ransomware happens, related to what the client is dealing with, what the MSP is dealing with, basically go through a timeline of what's going to happen. And then we're going to talk from there as to how can we do it better, because you experience it the first time, you're going to realize there's a lot of gotchas throughout the cycle, and hopefully I can identify some of the gotchas in advance for people to recognize how they can overcome a problem. Otherwise, how do we basically at the end of a ransomware attack look back and say, how could we have done it better?
There we go. All right, let's get started.
All right, so I've got control of the slides.
Yes, you do.
So we are going to talk about the playbook that an MSP should have for handling a ransomware attack. And some of you in the audience today may have already got a playbook. You've experienced a ransomware attack. Hopefully it was successful. Many of you perhaps have yet to experience a ransomware attack, so this will be a first-time look at some of the timelines we're looking at. What we as a BDR, we are a backup disaster recovery vendor. We're very important to handle the recovery from a ransomware attack, and we can assist you in getting things going, so we'll talk about that. Key thing, of course, is managing the client's expectation. They're naturally going to think you should have known about this and I should have an answer and get me back into business as soon as possible, but most cases that's not really going to happen immediately, and we have to know how to manage their expectations. And then I'm going to talk about what ConnectWise. ConnectWise plays a good role in how to deal with a ransomware attack. Perhaps not the first time, but it's definitely a tool that ConnectWise can handle to explain how you did the prior ransomware attack handling, and we'll go and how you can utilize that moving forward. So we're going to talk about a timeline. And before we get started, though, I have to ask a question. So I'm going to put up a poll about have you ever experienced a ransomware attack, and we'll just sort of see what the audience is saying. So go ahead, Jennifer, if you could display that poll. So now I'm not going to talk about how to identify ransomware. There's a whole discussion about antivirus and its role, all these other tools. We're going to talk today, it hits, it happens, and what is the timeline that's going to take to get your client back up and operational again. We're going to talk about when there's a business interruption, what happens when the computers are down. And every business reacts differently. You have to know how that business is going to react, and we will
well,
show you some of the scenarios.
I go skiing, so there you are, Dave. Hey, Jenny, do you want to go ahead and close that poll? We probably have results. Yep. There we go. Okay, Dave, go ahead.
All right. So it looks like we've had, sort of 50. Well, no. Actually, Jenny, how can I see that screen? It's hard for me to. There, I see how.
Oh, I'll be happy to read it if you like, Dave.
Yeah, if you could. It's hard.
Yeah, no problem. So 62% no. So quite frankly, almost 2/3 no. We have 38% yes, or a gentleman's 1/3. So it's darn near 2 to 1 on no.
Okay. So, but the key thing is ransomware. The things we're seeing in politics right now with the Russians, and it's happening, and they're going out trying to find and how to make money. These hackers, these ransomware people, and it's going to come. And it can happen anywhere, anytime. And it takes as simple as an email that arrives at one of the employees' desktops at your client, and it looks like it's so good, it's spoofing a form of a business transaction that is commonly seen, and somebody goes ahead and clicks on it. And whether it's phishing or spear phishing, it's something they're trying to get you to click on it. And today, being able to identify the difference between the spoofing email and the real thing is just becoming harder. So I'm going to do another little poll up here on this one. How are businesses trying to recognize these phishing attacks, and what are they doing with them? So I've got a quick poll that can come up, and this one.
There we go.
I don't know if we're having.
Yeah. No, we have the poll up. Are employees trained to recognize phishing attacks and what to do with them? Folks, if you could cast your vote, and be sure to use the questions feature on your dashboard to ask questions as we go along. I'll be happy to read your questions off. Okay, Dave, that hopefully we've given it enough time. There we go. So the results are 21% yes, 57% no. So the question is, are employees trained to recognize phishing attacks and what to do with them? So that's 57% no, Dave. And then 21% training underway and 0% training in the future. So no wins it.
All right, thanks, Harry. I'm having a little bit of audio difficulty, so I don't know if this is coming through clear.
Yeah, you're fine.
But that's interesting. That is very interesting that, again, not every business is into how to help their employees recognize phishing attacks, but we are getting better. So what we're going to do now is look at a common ransomware timeline. Again, I'm not talking about how to deal with the ransomware, whether you pay the ransom or not. The FBI, of course, says never pay ransom. Tell them all about it. But we're going to deal with now what's a typical business day at a client's location, and we're going to start at about 2 o'clock in the morning, where the nightly backup occurs at 2 o'clock, and as we look down at the MSP's location, they get some sort of backup result appearing in their ConnectWISE Manage or Automate tool, or you have another method of telling you that that backup occurred and closed off properly. You know, it started at 2, ended at 2:30. The employees come in the morning at 8 a.m., working away nicely. They're performing whatever business activity they do, and all of a sudden at 10 o'clock, somebody gets an email. They click on it, and the ransomware attack starts. And then at about 10:20, the client recognizes, oh, we better call the MSP and tell them what's going on. So, from 10 to 10:20, things have been going on, and typically, most ransomware is going off the network and just encrypting all the files. But somebody finally realizes because of something, we better phone the MSP and say, we got to tell you about this problem. Now, there are other tools out there that maybe the MSP is already aware of it, but I'd say in most cases they're not. So I'm going to ask Jenny to pop up one more poll, and that sort of leads into the question, how long can this business afford to be down before it impacts their customers? So we got some options there of time frames. I'm expecting everybody to say it should be less than 24 hours, but let's see what sort of results we get.
While they're voting, Dave, I'll tell you, I took a couple vacation days, went home to Alaska, and I'm back in Seattle. And it's very interesting, this question, because I met with a few friends who were in seasonal employment, right? So one's a cook at a fishing lodge in the summer, so he has downtime right now. So, you know, there would be those there would be those rare instances where, I mean, you could probably be down 4 days, you could probably be down 10 days, but I know the intent of your question, right? I understand we're talking about an ongoing concern.
Right. We're sort of assuming what the customer's expectations are. Yeah. You're going to be down for a short period of time.
That's right. Okay, so here's the results. We have 24 hours, which you predicted, is 92%. 48 hours is 8%. 0 for 3 days and 0 for 4 days. There we
go.
Okay.
All right. A little later, I'm going to tell you about an experience that a recent law firm had, and you know where it says greater than 4 days? That's what they experienced from their ransomware. So we'll come back. So anyways, down here in this new slide, in the bottom left corner, you're the MSP, your incident response clock has started. So you're on the clock now to resolve the problem. And you assign a technician probably to get started on the disinfection of this ransomware attack. The term disinfect is, you've been infected, you're now trying to disinfect. And so you're going off to reference a whole set of materials to identify what is the type of ransom, what are the techniques to disinfect it. This is right now a very problematic area for many MSPs because there are so many different types of ransomware attacks going on out there. They're not all readily just announced, hey, I'm CryptoLocker, or hey, I'm Locky. These hackers are coming up with modifications on a daily basis, and it could be, CryptoLocker version 1333, which does something slightly different from 1332. So lots of challenges out there for MSPs just to figure out what are you dealing with. So of course, your time frame is, your clock has started, and the time frame to know when we're going to even get to the disinfectant step is unknown. In the meantime, at the client site, it's now past 10:20, and you've got idle or low productive employees and management has hopefully implemented their business interruption procedures. And maybe a good organization does have business interruption procedures. Most organizations sort of follow the same rule as it comes to when there's a power interruption. You know, the power's off, the computers don't work, the lights are out, we'll sit idle, whatever. Assuming it's going to come back up in a couple hours, 20 minutes, whatever. In the meantime, management at the client site phones the MSP and says, hey, what's happening? What's going on, guys? And of course, time is moving on as the technicians are trying to figure out how do we start the disinfection. And this could lead across the top to business actually ends at 5 o'clock and they go home for overnight and come back in at 8 in the morning. In the meantime, your technicians are still trying to figure out what's going on. But one of the procedures they're also going to do is probably contact their backup disaster recovery vendor, such as us as Storage Guardian, to figure out how do we prepare to restore the data of the backup information that we were backing up prior to the ransomware attack. This time frame should be happening probably within the same day that you're recognizing how to do the disinfection, and you're arranging with your BDR vendor on how do you get the data to them for the recovery once the machines are back up ready to do the restore. But I think the key message here is the continual phone calls between the client and the MSP's management where they keep asking, when's soon going to happen? And this is one of the key things that we really want to talk about soon is, can you confidently say in terms of hours, days, whatever, how soon are you going to get your business back up? Now, the disinfection is finally completed. It could be several hours later. It's more likely, and what we were real world we're really seeing is typically days later, that finally the technicians have completed the disinfection, have brought the computers back up to at least the operating system level, got them on the LAN, all the machines are there. But, and maybe again, depending on the backup procedures, the disaster planning, maybe even the applications have been reinstalled. But now we have to go with the actual restore of the data. And it has to start at some point in time. And the actual time frame for it to restore is an estimate. If you're doing it the first time because you've never practiced a restore of this client's data, that estimate is, gee, let's watch it and figure out how long it's going to take, through to if you've actually practiced disaster recovery, you probably can speak with more confidence to say it's still going to take several hours to get the data restored because it just takes that long. And we'll talk a bit of whether the data is coming down over the internet or being brought down on a portable drive by courier. It's been couriered overnight, or depending again from a regional perspective, maybe it's just across town. It still takes time to do the disaster recovery. But what I want to talk about really is what's been going on with the business at the client site while the computers have been down. And what it is, they've probably had to revert back to some paper-based business process. If at all possible, if they can run their business and get whatever services they deliver based on paper-based, recording the name of the customer, set of details, describing what it is they need, and they can push it out, whether they're shipping physical product out the back door or delivering some other type of service, an insurance program or whatever. It's all being now done on paper because the client's management has made the decision, we can't be out of business. We have to talk to our customers, deliver the services they're expecting of us, and we've had to revert back to paper. So keep this whole thing about paper in mind. Okay? Yep. So, back down on the bottom, while we're talking about all this, the restores are going on. We're getting the computers back into sync at the time of the most recent backup prior to the ransomware attack. Not bad. Again, nobody can tell me these time frames, but time progresses. So now to the next and final slide. The restores are completed and they've been tested out because, again, good practice by the MSP says, let's confirm that they're working, that the machines work. They're ready now to say to the client, you're ready to get it back into business. But the client says, hold on a sec. I have to key in. If I want to get my business back into synchronization with my computers and everything, I need to probably resync with re-entering or entering for the first time all that paper-based activity that was going on during the ransomware attack, but I kept myself in business in front of my customers. And that volume of data that has to be keyed in from paper-based forms, whatever, is another factor that you as the MSP don't have to deal with because they don't ask you to key in the business activity data, but they're sort of cursing you in the background and saying, guys, you didn't tell me about this, or they caught on and realized, yeah, my MSPs are going to get me up at a point in time, but we still have to do more work to get ourselves ready for business. And it's only when they, yeah, go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, Dave.
I got you thinking.
Yeah, well, more importantly, hey, Jenny, if you could do me a safety and put questions that we get up into the chat window. For some reason, I'm having a webinar moment, and my control panel doesn't have the questions feature. I've been poking around, Dave, and Dave, the last thing I want to do is turn off the webinar. I don't want to poke too far. You know IT.
Oh yes.
Jenny, if you could give me a safety on that. Dave, please continue.
All right. Thank you. So eventually, you as the MSP get to stop your clock and says, hey, this project, this event, incident is done with. But of course, your client's going to call you up and say, hey, let's diagnose, let's go over what happened in the last few days. Most likely it's going to be days at this time, and understand how are we going to deal with this the next time it happens. And in effect, your client has probably, their confidence level with you perhaps has dropped a little to maybe a lot. We don't know, of course. But that's what we're dealing with. And now I'm going to relate the story about a law firm who on Christmas Eve of this past year received their ransomware. Again, one of the last employees out the door before Christmas, off for Christmas, answered a link in an email, off went the ransomware over Christmas. The next day, the MSP actually from another company somehow noticed this ransomware was occurring, and now we're at Christmas, New Year's week. They're calling everybody back in. The MSP has to bring in his employees who he had granted some downtime between Christmas and New Year's and get them come in. And it took, after bringing in also some high-level expertise, again, that had to be contracted. Again, there's some more dollars going on in that area too, to figure it out. And they did not get back into business until after the New Year's. So many days had elapsed from the time of the infection to the time of the disinfection. And then the big thing too, these guys had 7 terabytes of data to restore. And 7 terabytes of data do take a period of time to, restore one file after another. So that was another time frame. And the only good thing about that particular infection was all the legal people were pretty well off between Christmas and New Year's, so there was very little business activity. That was their saving grace. Very little paper trail-oriented activity had to be re-entered. So I've just walked you through that scenario of what's happening on the client side. Naturally, as MSPs, you know what you're dealing with. I think the key thing you need to keep in mind is the disinfection phase, the restore phase, and then finally you sit back and watch the client do a lot of rekeying of data to get themselves back into sync and not knowing what they're saying under their breath about you guys. So keep that all in mind.
Yeah, and Dave, what you know what I would add is I receive probably far too many newsletters from the day-to-day MSPs. I do that by design. I've signed up for them. You know, the MSPs you and I both know, and you know they're doing the work of angels out there every day. Their feet on the street, and so they have their monthly newsletter. And folks, this is the kind of topic that can be pivoted into a customer-facing conversation. Your law firm example, etc. The poll results about the 24 hours, etc. Dave, you know you're delivering some stand-up content here that folks can reuse, right, and make that conversation a customer conversation for marketing. So thank you. I mean, it's all right here, gang.
Just speaking, we've actually had MSP technicians sit in our parking lot at our location waiting for backup drives because they want them on portable drives. And we've watched these technicians sit in our parking lots, and we've probably gone out and offered them a coffee to keep them warm while these things are happening.
Well, I was going to say, you live in the land of cold, so I get that.
Oh, yeah. So, and in the summertime, we invite them into the air-conditioned office.
There you go.
All righty. So anyways, lots of things happening. What has it taught us? That recovery times can be done better. Of course, you have to experience your first one or second or third to realize how can we do these better. They're definitely right now, because of all the different forms of ransomware, there's just too many unknowns. That, of course, how to begin the disinfect that's an influence of that. That keeps the clock running. The business interruption plan. Most organizations, as I said earlier, they have the common interruption plan. Oh, the power goes out. Eventually, we send the employees home and hope they come back the next day. The power should be back up. That's the level of an interruption plan they might have, is to deal with power outage. They need to recognize now that ransomware, other computer interruption events influence the business. And they have to have a technique on how do I continue doing business while the power is out? Or sorry, the computers are down. What I meant to say. How do they go back to a paper-based system? And most businesses just don't have that. And again, maybe the client is expecting you, MSP, hey, what should I do? How do I keep doing and staying in business? And they suddenly think you're the subject matter expert on how to do business when the computers don't work. So keep that in mind. And the final thing is that I keep talking about, and part of the underlying on this presentation, how you can speak with confidence back to your client, that you know it is going to take time. Have them expect to maybe be, the computers are down for less than 24 hours, but it's more likely 48 hours. 72 hours. If you get them up and you tell them 72 hours, and of course they're cursing and yelling at you, but you get them up in 36 hours, guess what? You look like a hero. You're not a bearer of bad news. You're saying, I expect it's going to take this long, and if you guys deliver sooner, you look better. But never assume anything.
Wise words. Why, many a wise man has gone to his grave assuming things.
Exactly. All right. So I'm going to do a little change in subject. Analytics. You're probably hearing about this, but it's coming out there. And it can help you evaluate the potential problems, what's going to happen, help you ultimately speak in some confidence. What I'm showing here is something about how long we anticipate through analytics that it could take to just rekey business data that's been done on paper. Or there's a paper trail that helps you re-enter it. Sometimes businesses don't even have a paper trail because today's digital activity just doesn't generate any paper. But one of the things this analytics tells us, of course, is the backup schedule. The frequency of backup can be modified to reduce the amount of keying time. And my example here where I'm showing like 11 hours in the red of keying time compared to the optimum is the green of where it should be less than 1 hour. That can be easily accommodated by just changing your backup schedule. Instead of once every 24 hours, there's now new tools that let you back up as soon as the file changes. And I've got another slide to address that. Another type of analytics is how long is it going to take to get the files down? This example, I've got 119 gigabytes of data files for 120,000 files. And because we don't always know your download speed from as good as 100 megabytes a second through to as little as 5 megabytes per second, we've done this little analytics for you in this particular chart to say, hey, listen, 118 gigabytes could take as many as 22 hours to download, or if you've got great download speed like 30 megabytes per second, it might take 1 hour and 13. But here's where analytics can help you state something in confidence to your client that says, hey, once we got the disinfection out of the way, we know it's going to take another, and you're going to probably put some fudge on this, another 2 hours to get the download restore done and get you then up back into business. But these are tools that we offer with our software that can help you identify time frames. This slide here is talking about a new technique that the more sophisticated BDR solutions can handle, is something called continuous data protection, whereby it's backing up, in this example, every 5 seconds. So what changed in the last 5 seconds? Oh, that file changed. They saved that Word document. We back it up. And this continuous data protection is today's technique to fight ransomware, because we're backing up the files as they were just prior to the ransomware. I got a little statistic down here in the bottom. This has been running like 9 hours, and we've seen 9,000 files changing. That's a bit of a shock, but again, every business is different. What they do, what their applications create, they all produce data, and we should be backing them up within seconds of them being created. And there are tools in our software from Storage Guardian that can do that. Another key feature in software should be versioning, that you have the ability to restore from various points in time in history. And one of the interesting things is a BDR solution does do things to confirm that the most recent backup is going to be good for restore purposes. And it does its checks and balances, and they go through all that. But there could be a bit of a corruption. And it's by having this ability to choose from another point in time, another point to restore from, that's an important thing. And then finally, you want to deal with a BDR solution that never deletes your backups and the history of it, even if they've never been updated. You want to have what we call indefinite backup timeframes, where not for the convenience of the BDR vendor that says, oh, I'm just going to clear up some old data that we don't think the customer needs. You don't want to deal with that. You want to be able to go back for a file that maybe was generated 5 years ago. It's never been touched since, but it's needed for this restore because of ransomware. So that's an important factor. Another one is restore methods. What does the BDR vendor offer you? Can they do a portable drive restore versus an internet download? Do they give you a granular restore? And one of the experiences you have to look at is, we've got Amazon. They unfortunately experienced last week on the East Coast a major downtime of their cloud storage. What we call public clouds now, like Amazon, Azure, are great for doing certain things, but when it comes to being a disaster recovery point of recovery, they actually have some deficiencies. I don't want to knock them entirely because they're also good values for them, but when it comes to dealing with how do I get data out of them quickly so I can get my customer back up and running, the portable drive and a courier service is a very valuable tool to have, and the access to be able to put that data onto a portable drive is very powerful. But the other thing is, sorry, Harry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree. There's still, there's still a physical world out there, guys. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things that we offer here with Storage Guardian is while that portable drive is in transit, meaning we're shipping it out to you on UPS or FedEx or whatever courier service reaches that point somewhere in the country, while it's in transit, we still have the ability to start downloading over the internet specific files until that drive appears. And then all we do is we go in the software and says, okay, start downloading off the portable drive, but skip the existing files that already have been brought down over the internet. So again, no lost time in getting your customer back up and running, because even though we're watching a portable drive, overnight shipment, we still could continue to download the restore files while the drive is in transit. That's a powerful tool to get your customer back up. Now, I want to talk about something called the disinfection time. And as I showed in the earlier timelines, this can take lots of time. I gave you that example of the lawyers where it took several days. Well, there's now a new capability when you work with virtualized instances of your machines. Your customers' machines, whether it's Hyper-V, VMware. There's even tools now that can convert physical servers to virtual servers into Hyper-V or VMware. But there's a great advantage now on this in saying, hey, I just recognize it's going to take a disinfection of 48, 72 hours to just get the machines up and running. Why don't I have a rollback process whereby I just take the snapshot of that virtual instance just prior to the ransomware and just spin that back up instead? One of the things, though, you got to watch out with that, we have to deal with the image that comes from via the internet up to the cloud for the file. Ransomware has some dirty techniques built in some of the more recent ones where it can go off and deal with the backup images that have been kept locally. But when it goes over the internet and they use features in it on security, encryption, protection, certain rules, pretty well the files, the snapshots of these virtualized instances kept up in the cloud can be utilized to be the rollback method to get these virtual instance machines back in your client site up and running in a much shorter time frame. So if you're thinking about, hey, give me more instances on why I should be, A, going to virtual machine instances as compared to physical, and now why I should be backing up these full virtual instances, this rollback related to disinfection time is a good reason to consider it. Now, I talked about ConnectWise. I have to introduce this. ConnectWise, For those who use it, maybe some of you are already using this configuration feature within ConnectWise. I might be introducing this to others there. This is a fantastic tool to help you build your playbook on how to handle disasters, on how to record what happened along with what you performed to do for a particular type of ransomware. Maybe it's CryptoLocker or Locky or one of the other 500 other variants. But this is a great tool to help and start using the feature in ConnectWise to help you deal with any form of disaster recovery, business interruption, whatever term you want to call it. ConnectWise is a great tool for recording all this. So if you utilize it already, here I've just perhaps expanded on more content you could put into it. For those of you who haven't begun to use it, think about using it. It's a great facility built right into your ConnectWise system. Now,
hey, Dave,
go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, got a question. We have someone asking if you're comfortable making the deck available. We send out a thank you notice on Friday after the webinar. Any resource links you have, or are you comfortable with like a PDF version of this deck going to the attendees?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, all right, kick that over to me. All right, cool. Please continue.
All right. So this new slide I've brought up, this is showing we at Storage Guardian have been working with ConnectWise, and they've rebranded their product recently. There's ConnectWise Manage, which is the old original ConnectWise PSA, and then there is the LabTech, now rebranded as ConnectWise Automate. And we've been doing work with them over the last 2 years with integration, but we have been using ConnectWise ourselves here at Storage Guardian for the last 6 years and have had, fantastic use with it. But what I want to show you here is basically, so we have built some other integrations with our product called Storage Guardian. We do ability to actually install our software from inside ConnectWise. We know how to do the transfer of the monthly volumes that we're saving in our data centers of Storage Guardian for your clients so that you can in turn invoice them or do whatever analysis you'd like to do with this information. But it's the monthly electronic exchange method of moving this as compared to doing it manually. And then finally, we've got something called service boards. Those of you who are familiar with ConnectWise and its capability with service boards and tickets, we now have the ability to push our events from our BDR application into the service boards, and we include a feature in it that actually, because our software does its own self-healing, as it works over the 24-hour period, it's always trying to identify a problem and maybe had an hour ago and correct it. But what we have built into our feature with ConnectWise is the ability to deliver to that technician who maybe starts at 7:30 in the morning. He can go to the ConnectWise service boards and only see the business critical tickets that he has to deal with, because our software has recognized through its self-healing how to close those tickets because of the self-healing, so that all that's delivered to that technician are the critical ones, and the other ones are all closed off and available for review for later review through the service boards, but we're delivering just the most original ones. And then finally, I'm just going to click screens here. We also have additional analytics. Earlier I showed you analytics about download speeds, rekey times, but we also have analytics about what we're backing up on each backup event, the volume of data, how many files are new, how many are changed. This example says, hey, a lot of new business going on in this customer's location. Look at all the brand new files being added on each backup event. Great to know the customer's in business, getting lots of new business. So we're going to summarize now. The biggest thing for ransomware, it's a huge killer of time for your client and for yourselves. It's long, it's multi-stepped, it's going to create huge dollar costs. It's going to create overworked technicians on your part as an MSP, and it's going to create a lot of unproductive employees for a period of time at the client site. And then all of a sudden they have to become very productive because the computers are all up and now they're having to rekey a lot of data so they get back into sync with their customer activity. And ultimately that's going to lead to perhaps you have a client at the end of all this who doesn't really have any confidence in your capabilities because they kept asking you, how long is it going to take? And you're going to say it's soon, but ultimately you've never delivered what they've expected. So I've given you some real world experiences in a general form. Now's the time to throw out your questions and answers. This is one type of webinar on ransomware. There's lots of other subjects that can come out on ransomware, but throw the questions at us and let's see what we can speak to.
Sure. I've got a couple. So one is from Julia, who is a former MSP, actually working for what I would call a traditional business now. She asked, I believe it's like one of these restaurant services businesses, you know, the cars that run around and deliver the meals from different restaurants. And so she's asking if a traditional small business, a traditional firm such as hers, made an inquiry to you. Do you have a way to refer that business to one of your partners, so the partner could, you know, land the account, do good business, that kind of thing?
We definitely have techniques on how to do that, yes. We can introduce you regionally, if it's a regional who services that area, definitely.
Okay, the next question is your geography. So you're out of Canada, and you know, typically where these questions often go deals with crossing international boundaries. That's not actually how it was phrased. It was more just as, is your product have worldwide availability or North America or USA?
We have data centers in the United States to keep data within the U.S. We have data centers in Canada for those businesses wanted in Canada. And then we have clients from around the world that they get to pick and choose which country they wanted to go into. And then we even have, I always think of the hurricanes down in Florida and the Gulf where last minute, can you do a backup? But because you're in Canada, you'll never have a hurricane up there. I think my data's safe. So we deal with a lot of U.S. data in our Canadian data centers because of that perception that we never get hurricanes in Canada. By the way, we do.
That's
at least
pretty
our
good.
part of Canada. Yeah. So.
No, I understand. Next question is, and it's kind of a high level question, but can you share, you know, some of the top points about your partner program, how to become a partner, how to work with Storage Guardian, you know, what do I get paid, blah blah blah.
Right. Well, we have a very simple MSP reseller type program. And we work on a very simple pricing model. We work on a very simple, we want you to spend 30 days trying out our product, whether it's on your test bench with one of your prime customers that has agreed to work with you, so that you understand the product and this is the product you want to take to market. And we provide training, marketing assistance, any hands-on to help make you comfortable to assume this is the product you want to take to market. We also recognize that your client base maybe dictates that our product services a certain type of customer. You might use a competitor of us to do another market segment. We don't really care. What we're interested in is how to help you make money, of course, how to have a product that demands as little attention to make it successfully work. Our integration with CONNECTWISE is actually designed to do that, to say, hey, you don't have to deal with the majority of the messages our system works reports, which is basically successful. We want to help you identify a critical message, and that we also offer through our support group a virtually immediate response. The president of the company, like, hey, customer just hit us. Why aren't we answering already? That's the way we work, and that's what you're going to get from us, is the ability to be comfortable with the relationship with us and be comfortable with the product you're taking to your clients.
Yep, I would concur. That's the questions I have, Dave. We're actually starting.
Harry,
to have
if somebody's interested in being filling in the reseller program, there is posted on the StorageGuardian.com website. Just fill it in, and we'll get back to you, momentarily or very quickly, and we'll set you up with a 30-day evaluation. If you just go to StorageGuardian.com, and we'll give you some favorable pricing as well.
Okay, great. Gentlemen, there's a little bit of VoIPism going on just the last couple minutes of your communication, so let me repeat that. So folks, go to StorageGuardian.com. There's partner information. Go ahead and fill out the form, and they'll get right back to you and get you set up with a 30-day trial and nurture you to make yourself a Storage Guardian partner or a Storage Guardian reseller. The questions are clear, so Dave, maybe it's a sign from above with you've gone through the deck, you've gone through your message, we've gone through the questions. Maybe it's a chance to get people back to the salt mine and working.
And let's hope no ransomware emails came in the meantime.
Yeah, there we go. Boy, I'll tell you, it's really getting crazy out there. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for reconnecting with the SMB Nation community. It's been a couple years, and this is cool. And for the listeners out there, again, in the next 24 hours, you'll see an announcement where we're announcing the Executive Pocket MBA One Day that's going to hit Q2 and be traveling, and what that's all about. And then also you'll get a follow-up tomorrow with the deck and any resource links and that kind of thing. So thank you for attending. Dave and Omri, thank you so much. And I guess if you don't mind, I'll tell people to have a great day, folks.
Thanks, Harry.
All righty. Bye-bye.